Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Swallowed Star 2 origin continent based on novel. So let's start. The Eight Lords, including Luo Feng, quickly approached the Ancestral faction. The distance is sufficient. Yuan's eyes were blazing, as planned, execute the curse-killing array. From a farther distance, and with the Ancestral faction having layered formation defenses, the only technique Luo Feng and his allies could use to disregard all defensive formations was the Curse Tribulation Killing Array. This array could bypass all material and energy obstacles, directly reaching the target location. The Curse Tribulation Killing Array combines Luo Feng's blade technique Life Cutting, Lord Mo Man's main combat avatar Burning Fluctuation Kill, Golden Lord's Tribulation Destruction, and Starlight Lord's Spacetime Devouring. Under Yuan's command, these four lords' techniques flawlessly coordinated to jointly eliminate the enemy. Techniques used by Luo Feng, Jin, and Starlight have various limitations. Even though Luo Feng mastered two paths, and wielded the Blood Shadow Knife with the life-cutting technique, its power remains limited. Only Lord Mo Man, with his unique Primordial Fluctuation Dao, possesses techniques difficult for enemies to resist, often requiring brute force to withstand them. Therefore, he could completely burn his main combat avatar, and unleash the deadly Extinct Life Fluctuation. Among the four of them, Lord Mo Man contributes 50% of the power, Luo Feng contributes 30%, Starlight 15%, and Jin accounts for 5%. With Yuan's command, their combined power increased more than threefold. Buzz. Under Yuan's guidance, once the curse-killing array is launched, it operates like the rules of endless primordial space, descending as a calamity. This technique is imperceptible, difficult to sense. The Eight Lords gazed from afar, anticipating the outcome of this killing formation. The Ancestral faction was on high alert, with layered formation defenses. When the curse-killing array descended, most of the ancestors were unaware. Not good. Less than 10 ancestors, including Mother of Spacetime, Mogus, Silent Extinction Ancestor, and Shoju, sensed something. Though they could sense it, they could only judge whether the invisible crisis targeted them, but couldn't perceive the specific target. Nightmare Ancestor possessed a colossal eye occupying most of its body, and it was highly skilled in creating illusory realms, its sole expertise. However, it was not adept at close combat, and its physical body was quite average, hence hiding deep within the layered formations. Buzz. As the calamity descends, it targets Nightmare Ancestor. This calamity brought various forces from past and future, seemingly erasing it from time. Moreover, it obliterated the vitality in its life core, with terrifying fluctuations erupting within its life core. Multiple forces perfectly coordinated, causing Nightmare Ancestor's gigantic eyeball-form body to tremble, leading to its demise. In its death, the massive eyeball expressed deep regret. The Eight Lords, with their long-range technique Curse Tribulation Killing Array, disregarding all defenses, targeted the weakest bodied among the 7 ancestors skilled in soul techniques, the Nightmare Ancestor, and achieved instant effectiveness. In fact, out of these 7 ancestors skilled in soul path techniques, apart from one of the 9 emperors, the Silent Extinction Ancestor, the other 6 had weak physical bodies. The undying Mogus with its soul power-composed body is similarly frail. Whoosh! At the moment of Nightmare Ancestor's demise, power immediately drew its corpse to another timeline, vanishing into thin air. What? Nightmare is dead. How could it die under the protection of the Grand Array? The Ancestral faction was filled with anger and shock. Although the curse-killing array executed by the Eight Lords was an instantaneous affair, the ancestors were acutely aware of the Nightmare Ancestor's life cutting off and the process of its body being taken away. Techniques that disregard all obstacles generally have weaker power. Among the Eight Lords, although Lord Mo Man excels in such techniques, even burning his main combat avatar would only most likely injure an ancestor. How could it possibly obliterate an ancestor instantaneously? Everyone present couldn't believe it. The innate primordial camp and the cultivator camp had battled for a long time, and during past wars, they had become familiar with Lord Mo Man's various odd techniques, many of which quietly infiltrated, causing injuries to accumulate over time. Even when Luo Feng broke through, enabling Mo Man to burn the main combat avatar, it shouldn't achieve the extinction of an ancestor. This time, it was Luo Feng's life-cutting blade technique that was strong enough to cooperate with Mo Man. Additionally, Yuan made a breakthrough, the newly mastered primordial rule operation path, further strengthening the Lord's combined power, thus facilitating the elimination of the ancestor with a weak physical body. Yet, this scene was enough to provoke immense anger among numerous ancestors. Close the distance. While furious, the Ancestral faction immediately approached the Eight Lords, collectively traversing space-time quickly. Though Cursed Tribulation Killing Array is technically a long-range killing technique, faced with space-time traversal, in just a breath, both sides were confronting each other. Lord Mo Man, having completely burned his main combat avatar, fully recovered with Luo Feng's assistance. Focus on Luo Feng. Mogus glanced at Yuan, clad in colorful attire displaying large feet, and instantly transmitted his thoughts to 5 companions without hesitation. With Nightmare Ancestor gone, their combined power declined. Yet, with Mogus leading, 5 other ancestors assisting, their soul technique power still maintained 80 to 90% of its former strength. Buzz. Like before, soul techniques remained imperceptible and unrecognizable. The moment of attack arrived silently. Having just lost an ancestor, the Ancestral faction was seething with fury, aiming to change the situation. Previously targeting Yuan, now they focused on another key figure from the Cultivator faction, Luo Feng. Can Luo Feng hold on? Yuan, Starlight, and Mo Man were somewhat anxious. They greatly dreaded those soul techniques, thus using the curse-killing array from afar to first eliminate Nightmare Ancestor, trying to weaken the soul technique's power. Although Nightmare Ancestor is merely cooperating, Mogus is the core, and the soul technique's power should not be much weaker. Yuan's eyes also showed worry. He had personally experienced that technique and knew its terror. If he hadn't comprehended the origin system in the primordial rule operation path, he wouldn't dare to merge numerous subconsciousnesses. He estimated he would have to suppress many subconsciousnesses, and it would be impressive to exert 30 to 40% of their power. Luo Feng is too young, has experienced far less than I. Yuan worriedly looked at Luo Feng. Suddenly, all 7 lords were somewhat astonished. Because in their moment of concern, the battle array they formed together operated without a hint of impact. Their united strength perfectly matched, resisting the overwhelming attacks from the ancestor side. Luo Feng's strength wasn't weakened at all. Yuan, Mo Man, and Jin were all extremely amazed. To be hit by a soul technique and be impacted for some time is considered normal. No impact at all. Why are you all looking at me? Luo Feng looked at his 7 companions. Didn't you feel anything? Yuan couldn't help but ask. Didn't feel a thing. Luo Feng shook his head. The battle array operated perfectly, resisting all incoming powers. On the other side, when Mogus and 5 companions were using the soul technique. What is this? As the caster, Mogus could perceive that its power had touched a kind of power that made it feel uneasy, and momentarily, Mogus seemed to see the abyss of destruction. A part of the power from the abyss of destruction was constantly adding to Luo Feng. As a top-level mysterious land, although Luo Feng had obtained only 1/7 of the power from the abyss of destruction, this one part had endless wonders. It transcended the realm of matter and energy, and contained part of the abyss of destruction's rules. Talking about the uniqueness of the power alone, this portion of power from the abyss of destruction, from the aspect of quality, had already reached the theoretical limit of the endless primordial space. All matter, energy, time, causality, souls, nothing could purely surpass it. It represented the ultimate. Of course, Luo Feng could only borrow a part of it. The Starlight Lord, observing countless timelines in the future, couldn't probe into Luo Feng's future due to interference from the power of destruction world. The moment the soul technique came into contact with the power of destruction world, Mogus momentarily saw the abyss of destruction, and felt an impact from intense negative emotions such as killing intent, hatred, grievances, fear, etc. Its soul technique was also affected by the power of destruction world, with only 30 to 40% of its power truly impacting Luo Feng. He has the protection of the abyss of destruction. Mogus immediately understood this point. Even soul power would encounter obstruction and interference from the abyss of destruction's power. Previously, it had been very proud, always feeling that soul power, being at the same highest level of power, surpassed other forces. But this time, in the face of the power from the abyss of destruction, soul power was also hindered. Indeed, it's the power of the top-tier mysterious land. Luo Feng could feel it. The power of destruction world was like his armor. With his spiritual will, even as the soul technique was weakened, he could completely withstand it and didn't fall into it at all. From start to finish, he was absolutely clear-headed, as if he was just watching an illusory realm. Brother Luo Feng is amazing, truly amazing, much stronger than me. Ha ha ha, let's execute the cursed tribulation killing array again. Yuan laughed happily. Again. Lord Moman excitedly burned his main battle avatar completely once more. Once again performing the cursed tribulation killing array. Although Lord Moman's complete burning of the main battle avatar slightly weakened the defensive battle array of the Lords, even without Lord Moman, their battle array maintained 90% of its defensive capability. Luo Feng, Yuan, and Starlight were the three main cores of the battle array. No. Within the Ancestor's camp, Thousand Eyes Ancestor was terrified and desperate, and in shock, its life core had already cracked. ssnovelfire.net. Among the 7 ancestors skilled in soul techniques, the physically second most fragile Thousand Eyes Ancestor also failed to withstand the cursed tribulation killing array, dying instantly. At the moment of death, Thousand Eyes Ancestor's body also disappeared. Without a doubt, it was stolen by Starlight. It's over. Oh no. About to be defeated. The ancestors witnessing this scene all understood this point. The 8 lords united flawlessly, and even though Yuan was briefly affected by the soul technique, he had now recovered. Luo Feng felt absolutely nothing. As for Starlight, it was impossible to lock onto Starlight. All 3 targets were unassailable, but 2 ancestors specializing in soul techniques were already dead. This war was already lost, and if they continued to struggle, more and more ancestors would perish. What should we do? Next time, they will probably target us again. At this moment, the most terrified were the Myriad Touch Dragon Mother, Star Luo Ancestor, and Dream Weaver, who excel at soul techniques. Mogus is undying and unyielding, and the Silent Extinction Ancestor is also one of the 9 emperors. However, the physical bodies of Myriad Touch Dragon Mother, Star Luo Ancestor, and Dream Weaver are much weaker, only slightly stronger than the 2 who have passed away. Among the 8 lords, the only ones with weak spiritual will are the Golden Lord and Lord Nigu. Mogus, having been defeated twice, was no longer as confident. This time we deal with the weaker ones. Previously, we were too overconfident, and because Mogus was very knowledgeable about Yuan, this killing move was meticulously prepared specifically for him. This technique would be relatively less effective against other lords. The key elements of the Lord's formation are Yuan and Luo Feng, which is why they've targeted these two consecutively. Yuan was still hit, losing his ability to resist, although he recovered so quickly, which Mogus found hard to understand. But Luo Feng was not affected at all, causing Mogus's confidence to plummet. Target the Golden Lord. Mogus and his group of 5 launched their move. The soul techniques silently enveloped the Golden Lord. The 8 lords were resisting the overwhelming attack, waiting for Lord Mo-Man to recover before proceeding with the curse-killing array. Jin's expression suddenly changed, and his eyes glowed red as he fell into a vast illusory realm. Jin's character is different from Yuan. Yuan has suppressed his nature for too long, but Jin acts with utter abandon. Furthermore, with Nightmare and Thousand Eyes dead, the power of the soul techniques has diminished again. Unexpectedly, some tricky subconsciousnesses have emerged. Jin, however, managed to stay clear-headed, his glowing red eyes scanning the surroundings, transmitting, "Everyone, I need to concentrate on suppressing some subconsciousnesses. I can exert about 60% of my power." The team led by Mogus is indeed the greatest threat. Luo Feng and the others actually understood this, which is why they devised ways to attack and kill. "Jin, you should rest. The 4 of us will move." Yuan immediately transmitted. Mo-Man, Luo Feng, Starlight, and Yuan, the 4 of them coordinated once more to unleash the curse-killing array. Without Jin, it seemed the power was not much reduced. But sometimes, to completely annihilate an ancestor, just lacks that strength. Buzz. The curse-killing array landed on the myriad touch dragon mother protected within multiple formations. The myriad touch dragon mother felt its timeline being erased, its life core vitality extinguishing, and its life core fluctuating violently. The numerous tentacles twisted painfully, yet it endured. Its life force was inherently stronger than that of Nightmare and Thousand Eyes. The power of the curse-killing realm array had weakened again, allowing it to fully withstand this move. As long as it survived for a moment, the substantial life power from its companions replenished it, allowing it to quickly recover to its pinnacle. I survived. The myriad touch dragon mother rejoiced. The infinite snake ancestor, Ice Peak ancestor, Shoju, and many other ancestors all felt relieved. If such a physically weak myriad touch dragon mother couldn't be killed, those ancestors with more terrifying physical bodies would be under much less pressure. A killing move that ignores all obstacles will inevitably have limited power. The infinite snake ancestor transmitted to all sides, under the soul techniques. The lords of the cultivator side will continue to weaken, and eventually, they won't be able to stop us. Target Nigu. Mogus's confidence increased a bit as the group of 5 soul techniques enveloped once again. In previous years, facing mind techniques, both Nigu and Jin had suffered. Their spiritual will was already considered very strong, but among the 8 lords, they were relatively weaker. This content belongs to N0v3l.fire.net. This time, they were targeted again. Gurgle gurgle. Lord Nigu's gaze turned colder, and he slightly twisted his neck, where one head after another began to grow, adding 9 new heads. Nigu, how are you? Wulan asked worriedly, while the other lords also looked at Nigu. My power isn't affected. Lord Nigu said calmly, fortunately, with the 2 ancestors dead, this move is weaker, and the awakened alien bloodline will isn't too strong. With the heart-cutting technique, I can cut them off. Heart-cutting technique. Yuan was wide-eyed. Luo Feng also frowned. They had all read Lord Nigu's heritage tomes and knew that the heart-cutting technique involved actively severing subconsciousnesses, yet still perfectly controlling these subconsciousnesses. This is somewhat similar to cluster consciousness, where cluster consciousness has one main consciousness, and the rest are subconsciousnesses. But this path is ultimately not as pure as a singular main consciousness. Lord Nigu's path is the primordial bloodline Tao, but one of the challenges of mastering an ancestor bloodline is the residual bloodline will. Nigu had long since developed the heart-cutting technique, though he never used it before. This time, the numerous ancestor bloodlines within him were greatly strengthened in terms of residual bloodline will, which Nigu could no longer suppress, forcing him to use the heart-cutting technique, allowing the subconsciousnesses to become independent. Nigu may seem unaffected in strength, but his cultivation path has shifted from a singular main consciousness to the path of the heart-cutting technique. The more subconsciousnesses there are, the greater the influence on the main consciousness. The other 7 lords were all quite helpless. Jin's situation was much better than Nigu's. Having just been hit and able to maintain 60% of his strength, with time, he might recover to 80 or 90%. Even this training might make his spiritual will stronger. Nigu, however, was experiencing a change in his cultivation foundation. Currently, his strength is unaffected, but what about the future? This is the cost of war. Starlight transmitted. Find a way to continue to kill Myriad Touch, Star Luo, and Dreamweaver. Into the formation, Yuan also transmitted. The curse-killing array couldn't even kill the Myriad Touch Dragon Mother, so naturally, it was not guaranteed to deal with other ancestors. The 8 lords didn't waste time, immediately joining forces to unleash another killing move, the Heaven-Slaying Saber formation. The Heaven-Slaying Saber formation uses the Blood Shadow Knife's ability to cut through all matter and energy. The 8 lords jointly maneuvered it, with Luo Feng even burning his main battle avatar, consuming 30% of his energy reserve into this move. His 30% energy reserve was even more than Mo Man, Jin, and Ming Huang burning their main battle avatar energies. Boom. The 8 of them, along with the Blood Shadow Knife, seemed like one entity, transforming into an extraordinarily dazzling blade light. The blade light was so brilliantly spectacular that even the ancestors found it somewhat blinding. The moment the blade light appeared, a deep fear arose in the hearts of all the ancestors. Can't stop it. No way to block it. All ancestors had this realization deep within. The blade light shone with extreme brilliance, as if patrolling the endless spacetime. Wherever it passed, it silently and seamlessly cut through layers of the highest level of power barriers, and sliced into the intricate formations of the ancestors. These formation defenses were originally very strong, comprising a combination of various highest-level defensive powers. Yet, under this blade light, they were still cleaved apart. Deal with Nightmare. Mogus, Silent Extinction Ancestor, Myriad Touch Dragon Mother, Star Luo, and Dreamweaver quickly unleashed another soul technique. The 2 with weaker spiritual will, Nigu, Jin, were dealt with, while other lords possessed very strong spiritual will. I'm fine. Nightmare took this blow without a change in expression, and the slight subconsciousness born in her mind was completely destroyed and obliterated under the terrifying spiritual will of her Golden Thunder form. It's completely useless. Myriad Touch Dragon Mother, Star Luo Ancestor, and Dreamweaver were anxious and communicated. The 8 lords are coming for us, we need to hide immediately. Don't panic, they need to break through many formations. The initial ancestor is right nearby, and can take you in immediately. Silent Extinction Ancestor transmitted, let's first deal with Mo Man. According to historical experience, Wulan is the strongest in defense, with even his spiritual will like pure matter, unaffected by anything. Starlight couldn't lock on, Yuan and Luo Feng both tried. The relatively weaker Jin and Nigu also tried. It's worth trying once more on Nightmare, Mo Man. Buzz. If it were a soul technique at its peak power, it might pose a threat to Nightmare or Mo Man. But at this moment, the soul technique's power was only 60 to 70%, and Lord Mo Man also withstood it, existing purely as primordial fluctuation path. His main consciousness fluctuated like waves and easily crushed all derivative subconsciousness. Kill. The eight lords broke through layer upon layer of obstructions, having reached the core, directly pressing in on Myriad Touch Dragon Mother, Star Luo, and Dream Weaver. They are coming. Myriad Touch Dragon Mother, Star Luo, and Dream Weaver no longer wanted to engage, each actively charging towards the initial ancestor, who was right in front, silently encompassing them. The three of them hid within the initial ancestor's body. Inside the absolute sphere, Myriad Touch Dragon Mother, Star Luo Ancestor, and Dream Weaver finally felt at ease. We're physically weak, and shouldn't have joined the battle. Dream Weaver regretted somewhat. Under the coercion and enticement of resources from the innate primordial camp and Ice Peak camp earlier, they joined the battle. But who would have thought the formations formed by the ancestors couldn't withstand the eight lords? Shush! Suddenly, a terrifying blade light forcibly cleaved into the internal space of this absolute sphere. The three ancestors looked in horror at the appearance of this blade light. As the moment it appeared, it swept past them, and their bodies were carried away by the blade light. What? The ancestors were shocked and angered at this scene before them. The terrifying blade light, fully controlled by the eight lords, forcibly sliced into the initial ancestor's body. The slash was incredibly thin, but still managed to penetrate halfway. Our combined efforts couldn't even cut it in half. Luo Feng and the eight lords were also surprised. The body of the ancestor, even if cut in two, generally would not be considered severely injured, with minimal energy consumption. Only when completely obliterated, even the life core destroyed, would it count as a kill. Merely creating a fissure. The fissure couldn't even penetrate to half its depth. Barely considered a minor wound, the initial ancestor instantly fully recovered. All eight lords combined only managed to cut this deep. If I acted alone, it would just scrape the surface. Luo Feng realized this. But this scene in front of them shattered the ancestor's morale completely. The slight injury to the initial ancestor was just a minor wound. Yet it meant those hiding within the initial ancestor could still be killed. Can't win at all. There's no way to fight. Retreat, retreat. Many ancestors were in panic, with more than half actively communicating the need to retreat. Infinite Snake Ancestor, Ice Peak Ancestor, and other 14 undying and undying beings, upon seeing the initial ancestor cut to half its depth, knew that blow, who among the non-undying ones, could claim to withstand. At this moment, there was no more fighting spirit. At this moment, they all understood, this battle was utterly lost. They could no longer gather so many ancestors to fight desperately again. Retreat. Infinite Ancestor was very unwilling, but could only transmit. Retreat. Ice Peak Ancestor also ordered. In fact, this battle, with their greatest hope pinned on the Mogus team's killer move, even Yuan's recovery meant the battle was tilting towards the cultivators. The Infinite Ancestor suddenly erupted with dazzling light, enveloping each ancestor, and immediately these ancestors vanished into thin air, all hiding within the initial ancestor. Only 14 undying and undestroyable beings remained outside. Withdraw. Mother of Spacetime, along with her companions, quickly delved into time and space to escape. While fleeing, the Ice Peak Ancestor, Infinite Snake Ancestor, and Wugu Ancestor looked back at the eight lords. Don't pursue them, said Starlight. This time, the participating ancestors mostly had strong survival abilities. Previously, with layers of formations protecting them, it was very difficult to kill them. Now that they have hidden inside the initial ancestor, even if Luo Feng and the others could strike a blade into the initial ancestor, the residual power of the blade light would not threaten the more than 60 ancestors inside. If the ancestors truly decided to flee, the Eight Lords indeed couldn't stop them. Swoosh! Mother of Spacetime, carrying her companions, moved silently forward, while the 14 undying and undestroyable beings remained silent. They were forced to flee. This result had already shown itself. Although unwilling to admit it, the result is right in front of us. We lost. The voice of the infinite ancestor rang out. Even though we set up multiple layers of formations, the blade light formed by the Eight Lords could still penetrate the formations and threaten the safety of the ancestors. The ancestors are unwilling to continue fighting, and we can't force them. The Inference Fire Ancestor added, those who reach the undying and undestroyable state are ultimately very few. I could have threatened the Lords somewhat, yet you all had no other ways. Mogus said, rather annoyed. They, the Eight Lords, are flawless in substance, energy, fluctuations, life. Moreover, with Yuan's perfectly coordinated formation forming the battle array, no matter what techniques we use, we can't break it, the Ice Peak Ancestor said helplessly. Each Lord had mastered their own path perfectly, and the 8 of them working together could restrict all methods. Only in the soul direction are they not proficient, the Ice Peak Ancestor said. They are all creatures of the source world, cultivated from the very bottom, none of them have weak spiritual will, Mogus said coldly. Even the relatively weaker Jin and Nigu are of top-notch level among the ancestors. It was only after clashing with the Lords that the fearsome nature of these Lords was understood. I can confirm that under my soul techniques, Yuan, Jin, and Nigu have definitely been injured, Mogus said. Couldn't see their injuries just now in the fight. Infinite Snake Ancestor and Ice Peak Ancestor both looked at Mogus. Earlier, the one blade from the 8 Lords combined indeed had terrifying power. Mogus remained silent. It was indeed impossible to see any injuries on the 8 Lords in the recent fight. In truth, Yuan and Nigu were at peak strength, while only Jin's strength was compromised. Yet with the 8 united, the impact of Jin's injury was quite minimal. I have done everything I could, and with 6 helpers, this is the extent of my capability. Mogus swept his gaze over the 13. Unless you find a more formidable soul specialist, I won't engage in battles with the Lords again. Upon finishing, Mogus disappeared without a sound. Being entirely composed of soul power, apart from starlight, no one could trace its whereabouts. Mogus is gone. The Infinite Snake Ancestor said, in the future, it might not have the courage to directly fight the cultivator side. At most, it will covertly devour the souls of the creatures of the source world. What should we do next? Ice Peak Ancestor looked at it. There's nothing we can do. The Infinite Snake Ancestor said, the ancestors also fear death. Without enough security assurance, they cannot participate in large-scale wars. Only we, the undying and undestroyable, have no fear of them. But even if we join forces, we would be blasted apart head-on by them. We need to accumulate power. The Infinite Snake Ancestor said, this time it was because of Luo Feng's rise that the cultivator camp underwent a transformation. Perhaps in the future, one of our ancestors can emerge comparable to Luo Feng, able to cause our power to transform. Or maybe a being similar to Yuan can appear, allowing our formation cooperation to transform. In terms of formations, the ancestors fell far short compared to Yuan. Unfortunately, Pu Cheng, Xiao Sai Wei, Giant God Emperor, Kafu, Feather Emperor, Hermit, all of them refused to fight. Ice Peak Ancestor shook its head, the power we two deploy barely amounts to half of the ancestor's strength. The cultivator camp, on one side befriend Kafu, Demon Ruins, Feather Emperor, Giant God Emperor, Pu Cheng, Xiao Sai Wei, and other friends. On the other side, they only seek the source world, no longer expanding the territory. Thus, greatly reducing the number of enemies. In the endless primordial space, the ancestors, who did not participate in the war were all remotely observing this battle. Even when the Big Snake and the Ice Peak joined forces, they couldn't suppress Luo Feng and the others. Kafu grinned. The 8 lords have openly promised not to expand, yet the Big Snake wants to press down on them. Isn't that just asking for humiliation? Although they lost, the cultivator side will substantially lead. However, the Big Snakes will never acknowledge the rule of the cultivator side, said Feather Emperor. The Big Snake's temperament is such that it will never recognize it. Demon Ruins agreed. Whenever the chance arises, it will definitely counterattack. These are ancient beings who have lived for endless ages with enough patience. The failure of this era does not mean permanent failure. Who knows, a powerful ancestor might emerge. Perhaps the infinite snake ancestor, Ice Peak ancestor, or Shoju's strength will make a breakthrough. There will be rarely any battles of this scale in the long years to come, the hermit said. Yes, the ordinary ancestors will not easily join the battle anymore, the Feather Emperor concurred. The order of the endless primordial space has changed starting today. Asterisk 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 asterisk. Southern River Territory. Luo Feng and the other 7 were quite elated. In this great war, we paid some price, the Starlight Lord smiled and said, but we have thoroughly shattered the ancestors' morale, leading all source worlds without obstruction. We've finally waited for this day. Wulan was quite excited. To lead all source worlds. Luo Feng, Yuan, Mo Man, and each lord felt exhilarated. Finally achieving this goal. The creatures of the source worlds are no longer just food. Next, we 8 lords will have to work hard, the Starlight Lord said. We need to divide our thoughts, descending a wisp of thought into each source world. We need to guide the development and evolution of one source world after another, completely annihilating the residual power of the innate primordial life, while leaving some legacies to guide these source world creatures in their cultivation. Luo Feng and the others nodded. The source worlds in those territories are indeed quite miserable. To divide countless thoughts, each thought needs to do many things in a source world, indeed very arduous. Starlight looked at Yuan. Brother Yuan, we need a simple division of territory, you preside over it. Ha ha ha. Yuan laughed heartily. I've worked hard for endless eras, now I finally lead all source worlds. I think I can rest a little. This newly conquered territory, I'll divide into 10 portions. I'll take 1 portion and call it a day. Everyone present was surprised. In nurturing the next generation, Yuan was the most dedicated and proactive, yet now he only wants 1 portion of the territory. I don't want any territory in the newly occupied area, Nigu spoke deeply. In the coming years, I need to fully focus on the primordial bloodline path. This time affected by the soul technique, starting early on the heart-cutting technique path, Nigu knew it was necessary to concentrate all energy on cultivation. Once a problem arose, it would be a huge trouble. Nigu should indeed focus more on cultivation. Starlight nodded. I'll take 1 portion, Ming Huang spoke. I also want 1 portion of territory. The wounded Jin didn't care about the injury, still wanted 1 portion of territory. Wulan and Mo Man also only wanted 1 portion of territory each. The accumulated territories in the Cultivator Territory and Southern River Territory were already enormous. The even more vast newly conquered territories. The lords also felt pressured. 10 new territories, Nigu doesn't want any, we 5 will each take 1 portion. That leaves Luo Feng and Starlight. Yuan looked at the remaining 2. The territory is too vast, traveling is difficult enough. I'll take 2 portions of territory, Luo Feng said. Starlight, traveling through time and space, surpassed any existence in terms of speed, fit to manage a larger territory. 3 portions for you, Starlight said with a frown. In the coming years, I need to set up the complete spacetime net in the Southern River Territory, and for all newly conquered source worlds, more desolate and remote, although not requiring a complete spacetime net. a simple space-time transmission channel still needs to be set up. I also need to create a large number of worlds as space-time anchors. I really can't manage more, barely able to manage 2 more portions. Wherever you need worlds created, we will help you, Lord Mo-Man said. Of course I need your help. Otherwise, the new territory scattered across the endless primordial space, how could I manage it all alone, Starlight said. In each of your territories, all worlds needed for space-time anchors must be built by you yourselves. Luo Feng listened. We need to build in our new territories. Wulan, Jin, and the others all felt the pressure. You already have it easy. I need to construct the space-time net, set up space-time anchors in the worlds you create, and in my territory, I also need to create worlds myself. Even in the Cultivator territory and Southern River territory, where the space-time net is widespread, I must also garrison. Starlight looked at the 7, even so, I still manage 2 territories. You guys must be understanding. Find the newest release on novelfire.net. The lords remained silent. Starlight was indeed too busy. All right, I'll take 3 portions, Luo Feng immediately agreed. Luo Feng, your power makes some ancestors fearful. You should take on more responsibility, Starlight said. Ha ha ha, now that it's settled, let everyone get busy, Yuan said with a smile. Rustle, rustle, rustle. The 8 lords each took action. Luo Feng also instantly divided many thoughts, remotely descending into the source worlds within his new territories, manifesting in units of hundreds of millions of source worlds. In the Southern River territory, my territory contains more than 300 million source worlds. The newly conquered broader territory contains 2.7 billion source worlds. Counting his territory within the original Cultivator territory, the total number of source worlds he led was over 3 billion. Let's work hard to develop them well first. Luo Feng also began the arduous task of managing the source worlds. Luo Feng crossed the distant spacetime and arrived at a desolate void. Based on the spacetime position set by Starlight, a spacetime anchor is needed here. Luo Feng stood there with a thought. He began to use the primordial life and death Tao as the origin to create a holy realm. Creating a holy realm is similar to creating a lord's physical body, but with less difficulty. Because there's no need to consider abilities like movement, combat, etc., it's only necessary to pursue the efficiency of absorbing primordial force and the stability of the world. Therefore, every holy realm can reach the average level of energy absorption efficiency of the true bodies of ancestors and lords. I am skilled in the primordial life and death Tao and the primordial blade path, but when it comes to creating a holy realm, the life route is more effective. Recently, Luo Feng has created one holy realm after another, becoming more adept through practice. Using the primordial blade path as the origin, the holy realm formed is smaller in scale. The energy absorption efficiency is also lower, and the living environment within the holy realm is harsher. In contrast, using the primordial life and death Tao as the origin, the holy realm formed, which Luo Feng calls the life-sacred realm, is much larger in scale. The energy absorption efficiency is about 300 times faster, the living environment is also better, and more friendly to weaker life forms. Considering that the holy realms he constructs will migrate a large amount of life in the future, allowing cultivators to thrive here, Luo Feng naturally focuses on creating life-sacred realms. Rumble ~~~. This video will end here.